Ray Quinn pressed his back against the cold brick wall of the alley, the earpiece buzzing with the team's chatter. He gripped the pistol tighter, knuckles whitening under the dim streetlight. The sting had been months in the making, every detail locked down until tonight's leak turned the whole thing inside out. A voice crackled through the wire. "Target approaching from the south. Stay sharp." Ray exhaled slowly, letting the air steady his nerves. He shifted his weight, boots scraping against loose gravel. The informant had sworn the deal would go down clean, but something in the man's eyes earlier had set off alarms Ray ignored. The black sedan rolled to a stop at the curb. Two figures stepped out, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Ray signaled with a subtle nod to the undercover across the way. His heart thudded once, hard. Then the first shot rang out, shattering the planned silence. Chaos erupted. Bullets flew low and wild. Ray dove behind a stack of crates, the impact jarring his shoulder. "Hold position. Do not fire unless fired upon." The command looped in his head even as the scene dissolved. The suspect's partner had spotted the backup too soon, and now the alley filled with shouts and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Ray rolled to one knee and fired a warning shot into the air. It echoed uselessly. The target sprinted toward the car, and Ray lunged after him, boots pounding. A second burst of fire caught the undercover in the leg. The man dropped with a grunt. Ray kept moving, breath coming fast now. He tackled the suspect against the hood, the metal denting under their weight. Cuffs snapped on with a metallic click. It should have ended there. Instead, the arriving uniforms swarmed the wrong man. One of them yanked Ray's badge from his belt in the confusion, shouting accusations about planted evidence. The lieutenant arrived minutes later, face grim under the flashing lights. "Quinn, you're done. Hand it over." Ray stood in the rain that had started to fall, water soaking through his jacket. He passed the shield without a word, the metal cold against his palm one last time. The lieutenant's eyes held no sympathy, only the weight of departmental politics and a botched operation that would stain every file. Colleagues turned away as he walked to his car, the engine turning over with a reluctant growl. Inside the vehicle, Ray gripped the wheel and stared at the empty dashboard. The sting's failure replayed in fragments, the wrong timing, the missed signal, the informant who had vanished into the night. His phone buzzed once with a message from Internal Affairs. He silenced it without reading. The city lights blurred through the windshield as he pulled away from the curb, tires hissing on wet asphalt. No one followed, the radio stayed off. Ray drove without destination, the weight of the lost badge settling like lead in his chest. He pulled over near the river, killed the engine, and sat listening to the distant traffic. The descent had begun in that single moment of lost control, and the night stretched ahead empty of answers. Ray sat in the dark with the river's slow current whispering against the pilings below. He reached for the phone on the passenger seat and scrolled to a number he had not used in months. The line rang twice before a voice answered low and guarded. "Ray? Thought you were done with all this." "Not yet," Ray said. He kept his eyes on the water. "I need to talk about Mike." A long breath came through the speaker. "Mike's gone, you know that. I know what they told me. I want the rest." The contact named Eddie agreed to meet at the old rail yard in 20 minutes. Ray started the car and pulled back onto the empty road. Streetlights slid past like ghosts. He kept the radio off and let the engine's steady hum fill the space. Eddie waited near a rusted fence, collar turned up against the drizzle. They walked along the tracks without shaking hands. Ray lit a cigarette and offered one. Eddie took it but did not light it right away. "Your old partner was running protection for the South Side crew," Eddie said after a silence. "Not small stuff, he was moving product across the river for the big outfit out of the port." Ray exhaled smoke and watched it dissolve. How long? Long enough that the cartel started treating him like family. Then something went sideways. Mike tried to skim. They found out. The words landed heavy. Ray felt the lead in his chest shift. He pictured Mike laughing across the hood of their patrol car, then the same face turning cold when the questions started. "Who handled the handoff?" "A guy named Vargas. Runs the dock cruise. Mike met him twice a week at the fish market. Always cash in a cooler." Ray nodded once. He could see the pattern now. The late nights, the sudden money, the way Mike had pushed to close certain cases fast. It all lined up with the night the badge was taken. They stood quiet for a moment. A train whistle sounded far down the line. Eddie flicked the unlit cigarette away and turned to leave. "Watch your back, Ray. Vargas does not like old questions." Ray watched him go, then walked back to the car. The engine turned over on the first try. He drove toward the fish market without thinking, just to see the lights still burning on the water. The night felt less empty now, though the answers only made the weight harder to carry. He parked 2 blocks away and sat with the windows cracked, listening to the distant slap of waves against the pilings. Ray sat there for a long moment, the salt air filling his lungs. Then he started the engine again and pulled away from the curb, headlights cutting through the empty streets as he drove deeper into the industrial district where no one would look twice at a man sleeping in his car. The fish market lights faded behind him, replaced by the low hum of distant generators and the occasional flicker of security lamps. He needed cover now, real cover, and that meant reaching out to people he had spent years avoiding. By morning, he had parked behind an abandoned warehouse and made the first call from a burner phone bought at a corner store. The informant answered on the 3rd ring, voice rough from too many cigarettes. Ray kept the details short. He needed eyes on the cartel movements, names of the men hunting him, and in return he could offer a lead on a shipment the police had missed last month. The line went quiet for several seconds. Then the informant named his price, a cut of whatever Ray uncovered and protection if things turned ugly. Ray agreed without hesitation, knowing the bargain was thin as paper and twice as likely to tear. They met at dusk in a diner 2 towns over, the kind of place where the coffee tasted like rust and the booths smelled of old vinyl. Ray slid into the seat across from a wiry man named Torres who never met eyes for long. The deal unfolded in low voices over cold plates neither of them touched. Torres would feed him locations and times, but only after Ray delivered the shipment details first. Ray pushed a folded paper across the table and watched Torres pocket it without opening it. Outside, rain began to tap the windows, steady and indifferent. The next 2 days passed in careful movement. Ray slept in shifts, changed parking spots twice, and checked the rearview mirror every few minutes. Torres delivered the first piece of information through a dead drop at a bus station locker, a single page listing 3 addresses tied to cartel safe houses. Ray studied the list in the dim light of a library reading room and felt the weight settle deeper in his chest. One of the addresses matched a warehouse he had driven past the night before. He circled it on the map, then burned the page in a metal trash can behind the building. On the 3rd night, the threat arrived without warning. Ray had just returned to his car when headlights swept across the lot and 2 men stepped out of a black SUV. They moved with the calm certainty of men who had done this before. Ray reached for the ignition, but the first enforcer was already at the window, tapping the glass with the barrel of a pistol. "Get out." The words carried through the glass like gravel. Ray cracked the door and stepped onto wet pavement, hands visible, heart hammering against his ribs. The second man circled behind him, while the first asked questions in short bursts. Where was the list? Who had given it to him? Ray answered nothing, buying seconds, until the pistol rose again. He lunged sideways, slammed the car door into the first man's knees, and heard the crack of bone. The second enforcer grabbed for him, but Ray twisted free and sprinted between the warehouse walls, footsteps echoing on concrete. A shot rang out, the bullet sparking off metal somewhere to his left. He kept running until the alley opened onto a service road, then ducked behind a row of dumpsters and waited, lungs burning. When the sounds of pursuit faded, Ray slipped back toward the main road and flagged a passing cab. He rode 3 stops before switching to another, always watching the mirrors. The alliance with Torres had bought him time, but the cost was already showing in the bruises forming along his ribs and the certainty that the next meeting would not end with words. He paid the driver and walked the final blocks to a new hiding spot, the city lights blurring through the steady rain. Somewhere ahead, a single street lamp flickered and went out. Ray stepped into the darkness where the street lamp had died, the rain soaking through his coat as he scanned the alley for signs of movement. The hiding spot was an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the docks, its rusted doors groaning in the wind. He slipped inside, the echo of his footsteps swallowed by the vast emptiness. Torres had promised safety here, but the alliance felt thinner with every bruise that throbbed along his ribs. The ally waited in the far corner, a silhouette against the faint glow from a cracked window. Torres turned slowly, his face etched with something Ray couldn't place at first. "You made it," Torres said, voice low and steady, "but we need to talk." Ray nodded, keeping distance as he approached. The rain drummed on the roof above them, a steady rhythm that matched the tension building in his chest. Torres pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket and held it out. "This changes everything," he continued, his eyes avoiding Ray's. Inside were photos and documents, grainy images of Ray's contacts meeting with the very people hunting him. Ray's fingers tightened on the paper as he read the names scrawled in the margins. One stood out like a blade, his own brother, listed as the source feeding information to the enemy. The revelation hit like a sudden drop in temperature. Ray stepped back, the warehouse seeming to close in around him. Torres had known for days, yet he had let the alliance form anyway. "Why now?" Ray demanded, his voice cutting through the rain's patter. Torres shrugged, the motion heavy with resignation. "Because they're closing in and I can't carry this alone anymore." The betrayal twisted deeper, forcing Ray to replay every shared glance and whispered plan from the past week. Loyalties that had seemed solid now fractured into sharp pieces. Time pressed against him like a weight. Ray shoved the envelope into his pocket and turned toward the door, mind racing through the evidence he still needed. Bank records, phone logs, anything that could prove the double cross before Torres's people moved on him. The city outside waited with its blurred lights and wet streets, but the real chase had just begun inside his own head. He had to move fast, gather proof that would expose the web without getting caught in it. Torres called after him, but Ray didn't slow. The rain hit harder as he emerged, each drop a reminder of the seconds slipping away. He flagged a passing cab and climbed in, directing the driver toward the old office building where the first clues might still linger. His ribs ached with every breath, but the pain sharpened his focus. Allies like Torres had always been temporary, yet this secret cut closer than the bruises ever could. Ray stared out at the passing buildings, already mapping the next steps in his mind. Evidence waited in hidden files and forgotten calls, and he would reach it before the hunters did. Ray leaned back against the cracked vinyl seat as the city blurred past. The ache in his ribs pulsed steady now, a reminder that every lead carried teeth. He had to move before the cartel's shadows swallowed the trail entirely. The safe house Torres mentioned sat 2 blocks from the riverfront, its windows boarded and its back door left ajar on purpose. Ray slipped inside at dusk, the air thick with mildew and old oil. Files lay stacked on a folding table, some marked with precinct stamps that should never have left the building. He flipped through them slowly, matching names to dates, until one folder stopped him cold. It listed payments routed through a lieutenant's personal account, each entry tied to a known cartel drop point. He copied the numbers onto a burner phone and sent a single encrypted message. The reply came fast, demanding a meet at the old rail yard in an hour. Ray knew the risk. Walking in meant stepping into their net, yet the only way to pull it tight was to show he held the evidence. He taped the originals beneath a loose floorboard and left the rest scattered like bait. Night settled over the yard's rusted tracks. Flashlights cut through the dark as 3 figures approached, one of them wearing a detective's badge on his belt. Ray stepped into the open light, hands visible. The detective's voice carried across the gravel. "You picked the wrong fight, Navarro." Ray answered without raising his tone. "The files prove you took their money. 1 call and every precinct sees the transfers." The other 2 men shifted, weapons half drawn. The detective laughed once, short and ugly. "You think that buys you safety? We own the ones who'd listen." Ray held up the phone screen, the copied ledgers glowing. "These aren't copies I keep for myself. They're already queued to 3 reporters and the internal affairs inbox. Delete me and they go live." A long moment stretched. The detective lowered his gun first, jaw tight. "This isn't finished." Ray backed toward the fence line, never turning fully. "It will be when the indictments land." He slipped through a gap in the chain link and kept moving until the yard lights faded behind him. 2 blocks later, a patrol car swung in behind him, lights off. Ray ducked into an alley and waited, breath shallow against the brick. The car rolled past without stopping. He pulled the burner again and dialed the 1 contact left who might still answer. Torres's voice came on low. They know you have it, Ray answered. Then they know the reach ends here. He ended the call and dropped the phone into a storm drain. Dawn found him in a different borrowed car, ribs still throbbing but focus sharper. The confrontation had bought time, not safety. Yet the cartel's hand inside the department now lay exposed for anyone willing to look. Ray turned the key and eased into traffic, already tracing the next thread before the net could tighten again. Dawn found him in a different borrowed car, ribs still throbbing but focus sharper. The confrontation had bought time, not safety. Yet the cartel's hand inside the department now lay exposed for anyone willing to look. Ray turned the key and eased into traffic, already tracing the next thread before the net could tighten again. He drove south through the waking city, eyes scanning mirrors for tails. The safe house address burned in his mind, a place where the lieutenant kept his ledgers and his leverage. One wrong turn and the whole plan collapsed. Ray gripped the wheel tighter, pushing past the pain in his side. The building rose like a concrete tomb at the edge of the docks. Ray parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, staying low. A single guard lounged by the side entrance. Ray slipped behind him and pressed the barrel against the man's spine. Inside, he said. The guard froze, then nodded. They moved through dim corridors. Ray kept the pace steady, listening for footsteps. The lieutenant sat at a metal desk upstairs, surrounded by files and a half-empty bottle. He looked up without surprise. "Took you long enough," he said. Ray shoved the guard forward and kicked the door shut. "Your ledgers end today," he said. "Everything you sold to the cartel goes public the minute I walk out." The lieutenant laughed once, short and hard, then reached for the drawer. Ray fired once into the wood. The sound cracked the air. "You think that buys you a future?" the lieutenant asked. He stood slowly, hands visible. "They'll hunt you to the border and back." Ray stepped closer, the gun steady. "They already tried. Now the department knows your name and the account numbers. I mailed copies an hour ago." The lieutenant lunged anyway. Ray sidestepped and drove an elbow into the man's ribs, sending him sprawling. Papers scattered. The guard stayed on the floor, eyes wide. Ray grabbed the ledgers and backed toward the stairs. "Stay down," he ordered. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ray hit the ground floor running. He burst through the rear exit and sprinted for the car, the weight of the files slapping his thigh. A black sedan swung around the corner. Bullets sparked off the pavement. Ray dove behind a stack of crates and returned fire, aiming for tires. The sedan skidded. Ray reached his car, threw the files inside, and peeled out. He took the first alley hard, tires screaming. 2 more blocks and he merged with morning traffic, the sirens fading behind him. His breath came ragged. The pain in his ribs flared with every shift of the wheel, but the city kept moving around him. At the river overlook, he stopped. He spread the ledgers across the hood and photographed each page with the burner phone. Then he dialed the only reporter who had ever printed the truth about the department. "Meet me at the old ferry terminal in 20 minutes, he said. "Bring a photographer." He hung up before questions started. The reporter arrived alone. Ray handed over the files and the memory card. "This ends it," he said. The reporter flipped through the pages, eyes widening. "You're walking into a storm," she warned. Ray nodded. Better than running from one. He drove north after that, away from the city. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the dawn haze. Ray kept the radio low, listening for any mention of the lieutenant's arrest. By midday, the first report broke. Internal Affairs had raided the safe house. The cartel connection was out. Ray crossed the state line at dusk. He pulled into a small motel and paid cash. In the room, he stripped off the blood-stained shirt and cleaned the wound as best he could. The mirror showed a man who had already lost too much. He taped fresh gauze over the ribs and sat on the edge of the bed. The future waited beyond the next sunrise. No badge, no backup, just the files he had left behind and the names still circling in his head. Ray lay back, gun on the nightstand, and closed his eyes. Justice had a price. He had paid it. Now the road ahead belonged to him.